All right, in this video, we're going to go over the UPS API. Now, it used to be that the UPS API was not using oAuth2 for its authentication, which has made things a little bit more complicated, but I think it's going to be better in the long run for security reasons. Now, unfortunately, oAuth2 it's known for being extremely complicated compared to other forms of APIs. So we're going to have to go into some detail about how OAuth works. And if you've never used oAuth2 before, this video is going to be a pretty good crash course on the subject. And once you understand how oAuth2 works on the UPS API, you should be able to use oAuth2 on many other service providers as well. See, when you're trying to use an API, there are three parties involved. And since we're talking about the UPS API, I'm going to use UPS as an example. There is UPS, the service provider itself. There is the user who wants to basically get services through your website. And then there is your website. Let me just really quickly explain what oAuth2 does. Basically, all it is an agreement between these three parties that your website can do things on the user's behalf. Your website can use UPS services on the behalf of the user. See, once this agreement has been established, the user doesn't need to be involved at all. Your website can ask for services from UPS on the user's behalf, and the user doesn't even need to know about it. But it also should be noted that the user has the ability to reject your website's privileges to use their services at any time they want. So, what does this agreement look like? Essentially, this is what is called a token. Once you have agreement from all three sides, your website will receive a token. And anytime you make a request to the UPS API, you just give the UPS API this token, and then UPS will render the services to you. Now, all of this is pretty standard, and even authentication methods that don't have anything to do with OAuth2 do something like this. Where it gets complicated is that, and what OAuth2 has introduced is, how does your website receive this token in the first place, which is where OAuth2 gets more complex than other methods. But I don't want you to worry about that, because I am going to very simply walk through each step that you need to take for your website to receive this token from the UPS API. That way you have an understanding of the process. So we know what the goal is. The goal is to use OAuth2 to get that token onto your website so that you can use it to receive services from UPS on the user's behalf. And I know as we are walking through these steps, you may become overwhelmed and think, man, this is just too complicated. I don't even know why I'm bothering with it. But just as long as you remember that the goal is to get that token and stay focused on that, you should have no problem. Because yes, there's going to be some ups and downs along the way. We're going to be trying to get different things and authentication and everything like that. But just remember, keep your eyes on the prize. Get the token onto your website. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why do I have to jump through all of these hoops if I am the user and the owner of the website? And you're right, it is a lot of hoops to jump through. But if you think about it, you as a user of UPS are still a different entity than the website that you're building. So you still need to generate a token so that your website can act on your behalf. Now, I've watched several YouTube videos on how OAuth2 works, and most of them are going to show you a diagram that looks kind of like this. Now, although I'm sure that these kinds of diagrams are technically accurate, they do look a little bit complicated, and for someone who's new working with APIs, it can seem very overwhelming. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach and show you a diagram that looks more like this. Let's really quickly run through the bird's eye, before we jump into the code, the bird's eye view of what you have to do in order to acquire this token that you are trying to get. The first thing is that the user, in some cases this might be you, but in some cases it might be just someone who is using your website. The user has to go to your website and go to the go to the page that is going to be used to basically start the process of acquiring this token. And when they land on that page, they're going to automatically get redirected to UPS's website. And UPS is going to ask them for their login credentials. This is not the login credentials for your website. This is the login credentials for UPS's website. And if the user enters in their login credentials and presses login, they are going to basically approve your website, and UPS is going to generate something that's called an access code. And this looks very similar to a token, but it's not a token. It's not what you're looking for. That's why I've marked it in silver. It's one of the steps you need to take to get the token, but it's not the token. It's just an access code. Now, once this access code has been generated, the user is going to be redirected back to your website, except now your website has this access code. And the next step, the user doesn't participate in anything in order to do this next step, but the next step is your website will automatically go to UPS's website and say, hey there, I have an access code. I'd like to get a real token that I need. And in many APIs, they call it something different, but in the case of UPS's website, UPS's API, they call this a barrier token. And the barrier token is the token that you need. So once your website asks UPS for the actual token that you want, and you have the access code, your website now has the token, and you're ready to start making requests to any of the services that UPS has to offer. Now, anytime you want to use a service, all you have to do is request the service from the API and include your token, your gold token, with your request. It should be approved. Now, I also want to take note that things can get a little bit more complicated because these tokens, the gold tokens, do expire. The barrier tokens do expire, so we need to set up some checks for that to make sure that they're not expired before we ask UPS. But ignoring that part, this is all you have to do to get the barrier token, the gold token that you need to make API requests. Okay, so let's jump right into the code. I wanted to personally apologize for how terrible the audio sounds. I'm outside and it's raining for personal reasons, but I still wanted to get this video out to you guys as soon as I could, so that's the situation that we're in, unfortunately. So there's a couple of things that you're going to need for this project. One of the things that you are going to need that's actually kind of important is you're going to need a server that has SSH. You're going to need a server that has HTTPS encryption enabled. So I'm going to be working locally here. So this is my local environment right here, but I also have a cloud server that has SSH on it. So everything in the bottom left, this is what's locally, and I'm just going to push those changes up to the top right, which is my SSH server in the cloud. There is a way of doing this without there is a way to do it without HTTPS, but you can't use the oAuth2 method to get your access token. So I may cover that in a different video, but for this video, one of the requirements is that you are able to push your files up to an HTTPS server that has both HTTPS enabled and PHP installed. We are going to be using PHP for this project. So there are other program languages that you could use, but we're using PHP. And I have a feeling if you know other programming languages, you shouldn't have any problems following along. Something else that you should know is that all of the code that I have right here is actually in a GitHub repo, which you can go and download. The link should be in the description. That way, when we're walking through these steps, you don't necessarily have to code it all yourself. You can just pull those from the GitHub repo and then use them yourself. All of the files that were laid out here on the left, we will be touching every one of these files except for maybe the README and the gitignore file. And the other file that we will not be touching is the get shipping cost PHP file. This is a file that I created in a different project, and it goes over the method that you can use where you don't need HTTPS. So you can take a look at that if you'd like. I also cover this file in a different video, but pretty much every one of these other files we will be taking a look at. But we're not going to go over this get shipping cost PHP file. Another thing that you're going to want open for your reference is the UPS API documentation, and you are obviously going to need a UPS account. Now, when you sign up for your UPS account, you're going to receive a UPS account number. This UPS account number is going to be a 6-digit number that's going to contain both numbers and letters. I'm going to be pulling up this diagram as often as I can because I think that it's the simplest way that I can conceive of to help us walk through this process. So let's start at step 1. Step 1 begins on your website. And when the user lands here, the only goal of this page on your website is to get the user to move to step 2. And in the process of moving to step 2, you're going to pass some information to the UPS web page. The information that you're going to be passing is basically information that identifies where you are coming from. And once UPS knows where you're coming from, it's going to know what applications are allowed on your account, and it'll know some information about you. So you have information about you that we need to pass to step 2. So how does UPS know what website you're coming from? Well, we're on the UPS website right now, and we need to create a unique identification set of credentials so that UPS knows who you are. So I'm going to go to My Apps, and then I am going to log in. It looks like it's been too long since I was here. I'll log in, and let's create those credentials. Basically, as far as UPS is concerned, an app is a website that you're coming from. So you can see here I have 3 apps or 3 different websites that I have given access to my UPS account. So let's just go over, you can create a new app by clicking the Add Apps button, but I've already done that, and I want to show you what my test app looks like. When you've created an app, you are going to be given a client ID, which is seen right here. You can reveal it by pressing the little eyeball, and a client secret. These are unique pieces of data that anytime you use it with the API, it knows which website you're coming from. So we need to put these on our website and then send them to the UPS API so that it knows where we're coming from. Now, this is good information, but let's go back to the diagram real quick. Once you are on the second step, UPS needs to know where to send you to step 3, which is where this callback URL comes in. When you're creating your app, it's going to ask you for a callback URL. And this is going to be where UPS is going to send you after you've logged in. This is only required for moving from step 2 to step 3, but it does need to be entered in there. Okay, getting back into the code. So this file right here, the one that says OAuth flow, this is the start of this page. It is, where is it? Going back to the diagram, that is the first step. The OAuth flow is the first step. And as you can see, I've copied and pasted my client ID, my client secret, and the redirect URL right here. And all three of these, they need to be the same as the information from your website. Like I said, this is the information that uniquely identifies your website so that UPS knows who you are and where to send you after the user logs in. Really quickly, also, I want you to take note that the redirect URL is it is an HTTPS website, and it goes straight to the PHP file of step 3. Now, you may not have built this out yet. Step 3 is going to be over here, but it needs to go on the internet straight to the file of your of step 3 in the flow. All right, so I just want to let you know, since we're going to be jumping to the UPS website and grabbing this access code and then moving on to step 3 pretty quickly, I want you to know that everything that happens in step 3, I've actually gone to that redirect URL and I've commented out the code so it actually doesn't do anything, so you can see what happens. So I'm going to save this and push it up to our server. So let's save those changes on the server and see that we've commented out that code. And let's go to that OAuth flow starting page. Okay, so see, when I went to the OAuth flow starting page, it automatically redirected me to UPS, asking me to log in. All right, so I'm going to consent and continue. It's going to ask me for my password. And then when I press login, it takes me back to the callback URL. And like I said, this code is commented out, so you don't see anything on the page. But what I do want you to take note of is that UPS sent us exactly back to our callback URL, just like we have written down in our both on our application page and the one that's written in our code, because it's the same thing, except UPS has added something into the query string. They've added this thing that's called a code, and it's a long string of letters and numbers that is essentially, well, actually, this is exactly this. It is your access code. That long string of characters is your access code. And now you are currently on step 3, but you're on step 3 with an access code. So now let's find out what we do with that access code. So we've got our access code. Let's uncomment this code so you can see what's going on. So we're on step 3, and you can see right here we have the authorization code, and it's pulling it from the query string. And it's using this authorization code to make a request to a different UPS API. And the second UPS API that it's using is this generate token API. And the generate token API, basically you give it your access code and then it returns the token, the gold token, the thing that you've been waiting for. So let's see how we do that. So now that I've got those changes saved, I'm going to push those changes up to our server. So we have those changes now. Let's start the OAuth flow once again. Let's go back to our URL. And so it's going to go very quickly. You're going to land on this page. On step 1, it's going to automatically redirect you and ask you to log in, and then it's going to go to step 3, except now you have your access code, and then on step 3 it will automatically redirect to UPS and get the token, and then you'll automatically be redirected back to whatever your callback URL is. And let me just let you know that this callback URL, you don't need to enter it in on UPS's website. UPS actually doesn't care. They only need a callback URL on for step 2. So for step 3, you could literally send it anywhere you'd like, but most people send it back to your website so that you can actually receive that token and do something with it, save it in a database or something like that. So let's go back and start from the beginning, the OAuth flow page. It's going to automatically redirect us to UPS's website. We're going to log in. Log in. It's going to go get the access token, bring it back to your website, and then it's going to send you, let's close this. It's actually just going to display it on screen. So this is it. This is your access token right here. Now, it has also given us a refresh token, which we can cover in another video. But this token right here, once you have it, you can use it for making any API calls to the UPS API. You can use it for the address validation API, UPS track alert API, locator, rating, anything that you want, you can use this. So if we just take this, I'm just going to copy it right here. I'm going to copy this code. Oopsie. Copy it. And I'm going to go to this get rate PHP file. And you can see the authorization barrier token. It's right there in the string. So I copied it off of the page and I literally paste it right here. And this get rate right here, let's push it up to our server. This is for getting the cost of shipping this package. I just copied and pasted this code from the API documentation, except now I'm submitting it with the barrier token. Let's go to that page, but instead of OAuth flow, we're going to go to, what did I call it? Get rate. And it's going to give us 1085. And this is the cost to ship a package from one place to another, and the package size and everything, that's all denominated in this file. So once you have that token, all you have to do is submit it with your request on any of these UPS APIs. You just submit that token with the request, and you can do anything that you want. You want to get rates, you want to use their shipping API, tracking API, anything. As long as you submit this gold token with it, you should be able to use it. One of the last things that I want you to know, though, is that this token does expire. It is only active and alive for an hour. And after that, you do need to refresh the token. And that's a whole different process and a whole different video. But I do think that once you understand that, you should be able to use, that's why I have this refresh token. Oh, where did it go? I lost it. That's okay. You use the refresh token and the barrier token to get a new barrier token. And I might make a different video on that, but I think that a lot of people, they just don't understand how OAuth 2 works. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very confused when I was learning about OAuth 2. I mean, there were people that were showing crazy diagrams that just made absolutely no sense to me, like this diagram right here. It's just very overwhelming and difficult to understand, even though technically accurate. But I think that this sort of a layout can help you get your feet wet in OAuth 2. And once you can walk through this flow over and over and over again, then you can start to understand a little bit more of the nuances. But you got to get the basics first. And this is the basics. The basics are acquire your token, your API token at all costs. And to get that, you need an access code, and you have to log into UPS in order to get that access code. It can seem quite confusing, but this is much easier to understand, in my opinion, than this. Not to discredit or belittle anybody who puts together diagrams like this, but it is a little bit more advanced for people who understand about authentication and things like that in the first place. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you want me to make a video on how to refresh this token, or how to save the token so that it can be used later. A lot of times people save it in a database. Sometimes we save it in files. But if you want me to make videos on those topics, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see if I can make that happen for you. Anyways, it was good making the video, and I hope to talk to you guys in the next one. So yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye.